We've been working really hard on carbon reduction for many years. We've had targets based on our 16-17 base year to reduce our Scope 1 and 2 emissions. So that's all the emissions that come from Premier Inn sites, ultimately that we own and control within our operations. We want to be net zero by 2040 and to reduce our Scope 3 emissions to 90% by 2050. Scope 3 are all the ones in our supply chain. So that's all the emissions that come from all the beef that we procure, the emissions that come from all the beds that we buy, and then also the downstream emissions as well from our operations. But you can see within our Scope 1 and 2, the majority of that is gas, which obviously comes from heating the water and the buildings in our hotels. So we obviously have a lot of people having showers all across the country at the same time, and they've got to be nice and warm. So there is a gas use there, mainly going on the hot water, the company car and logistics fleet, and then on the electricity that we use across the estate. And you can see on the right how we're doing. So at the moment we're over halfway in terms of reduction against our base year emissions, which is really positive, but we know we've got a long way to go. And then in terms of our Scope 3, we're just over a third of the way there in terms of reducing the emissions that we see coming through our supply chain. And certainly, I think more challenging because it's not in our control, but the biggest part of our overall emissions. So if you take Scopes 1, 2 and 3, Scope 3 make up about 85% of those emissions. So really important that we work with our suppliers to start to reduce those. So how are we going to get there? So electricity, we already use 100% renewable electricity across our UK estate. So we own and operate. There are a couple of landlord sites that we don't, where we lease those, but really I think just 4 or 5 now, and we're working with those to try to move them to renewable electricity. And our Irish sites, we're moving to renewables this year, I think. So we'll soon be there across the entire estate, and all of Germany we use renewable electricity. So that's REGO-backed electricity. But we still continue to work to reduce this and just ultimately be a more efficient business. A lot of this isn't just about reducing carbon, we also see financial gain when we can reduce the amount that we use. Gas is really the tricky one. There aren't a lot of viable alternatives at scale at the moment, and it makes up the majority of our emissions. So in terms of new builds going forward, we've committed to have all new builds from 2027 onwards with no gas at all. So they'll be using air source heat pumps. And we actually built a hotel last year, which opened last year with no connection to natural gas. So I'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. But the biggest challenge is actually our existing estate. So how are we going to retrofit all of our old sites or current sites to take the gas out? So we're currently trialling retrofitting some of our sites to take out the gas boilers and to put in air source heat pumps. So quite a challenge. Some of our sites are 300 bedrooms in the middle of really densely packed urban centres. Making changes to the the infrastructure around it can be quite challenging. Some of them are 30 rooms in the middle of nowhere. So yeah, it's not going to be a one size fits all for our estate, but we're really working towards that. And business travel, so we have a logistics fleet which does all of our deliveries. It's a bit challenging because for long haul travel with HGVs, there's not really tried and tested alternatives to petrol, but we're working on ways that we can try to reduce our emissions through them. And we're also committed to having our entire company car fleet as all electric by 2030, and we're doing quite well on that at the moment. I'm not going to go into Scope 3 in too much detail, but ultimately this is all about working with our suppliers to try to help them to reduce their emissions and understand where the biggest categories are. As you can imagine, the biggest ones for us are in meat and dairy that we procure for our restaurants, and also in the building work that we do when we build new hotels. So that's the kind of projects that are underway at the moment that we're working really closely with our energy team to move forward on. And I just want to touch briefly on Swindon. So we're really proud of Swindon at Premier Inn. This hotel opened in October last year, and it's a culmination of years of planning and work, and it's the first hotel we've designed and built with no connection to natural gas. So it's using air source heat pumps. You can see them on the roof. They're huge, and there are a lot of them. We've got a lot of water storage in the bottom of the building, and I won't read through all of this, but you can see that we've got a lot of energy saving and energy efficiency tech within the building. We've got solar panels on the top. It's designed to meet BREEAM Excellent Standards, which is a building certification, and the whole building is using materials and fabrics which are just designed to optimise energy use. And we won an award for this in November from ED, which is an environmental e-zine, I suppose you would call it. So we're really proud about that. And as I said, this will be the blueprint for our hotels going forward from 2027. So making sure we're not putting any more gas into the estate.